Welcome. Today, we're opening up the Data Detective's Toolkit. We're going to arm you with the essential statistical tools you need to crack cases and, more importantly, to figure out if a pattern you're seeing is the real deal or if it's just random chance. I mean, think about it. You see a headline, right? New Wonder Diet works. But does it really? Or did the people in that study just get kind of lucky? That is exactly the kind of mystery a data detective gets paid to solve. So here's our game plan. First, we'll nail down the core mission. Then, we'll learn the rules of the game. After that, we'll pop open the toolkit itself to look at a couple of key tools. And finally, we'll learn how to lay down the final verdict. Okay, let's get into it. So first things first, let's talk about the fundamental challenge. Every single time we look at data, we're staring down one critical question. Is this pattern I'm seeing a genuine discovery, or is it just, meaningless, random noise? And that leads us to our biggest clue, statistical significance. You can think of this as the data detective's official seal of approval. When we say a result is statistically significant, what we're really saying is, hey, we've got strong evidence that this is the real deal and not just some random fluke. Okay, so how do we actually find this evidence? Well, any good investigation needs a clear set of rules, and in statistics, it all starts with this little thing I call the null hypothesis game. It's how we frame every single mystery we're trying to solve.
And this is just a brilliant way to frame the whole thing. On one side, you've got the null hypothesis. This is the skeptic in the room. It's the boring default position that says, nothing to see here, folks, no real effect, any pattern is just random. But on the other side, we have the alternative hypothesis. That's our hunch. That's the exciting idea that, yeah, there is something real going on here. Our entire job as detectives is to find enough evidence to prove that skeptic wrong.
All right, it is time to open up that toolkit. Our first tool is a classic. It's a real workhorse, and it's designed for one specific job, comparing averages. Let's meet the t-test. The student's t-test is our go-to when we need to know if the average of one group is genuinely different from some known number, or if the averages of two different groups are really different from each other. So let's see this thing in action. So here's our first case file. We've got IQ scores for 10 boys. Their average works out to 97.2. Now, yeah, that's a bit lower than the known population average of 100, but is it significantly lower? Or could you easily get an average like that from a random group of 10 kids just by pure chance? And here's the verdict. Our calculated t-value, which is basically our evidence score, is just 0.62. But to be significant, it needed to be higher than what's called the critical value, which is 2.262. Think of that critical value as a line in the sand that statisticians draw. Your evidence has to cross that line to be taken seriously. Since our score didn't even come close, we can't tell the skeptic he's wrong. So, conclusion? No significant evidence here. Case closed. All right, let's grab the next case. This time we've got two totally separate groups. One bunch of pigs gets diet A, another gets diet B. What we want to know is one diet actually better than the other for weight gain? Is there a real difference in the average weight gain between these two? And the verdict is in. Once again, our calculated evidence score, that t-value of 0.609, it falls way short of the line in the sand, which was 2.06 this time. So even if on paper the average weight gains looked a little different, we just don't have the statistical proof to say the diets are truly different. Any difference we saw was probably just random noise. On to our third and final t-test case. Now, this one's a little different. We've got 5 people, and we measure their IQ before some training, and then again after the training. The question is, did that training actually make a difference? We call this a paired test, because we're comparing each person to themselves. The results are pretty clear. Our calculated t-value is 0.816, and that doesn't even come close to clearing that critical hurdle of 2.776. So even if a couple of people's scores went up, the change overall just isn't strong enough to be called significant. We have to conclude the training didn't have a real measurable effect. Okay, let's put the t-test back in the box and pull out a totally different tool. What if our mystery isn't about averages? What if our clues are categories, not numbers? Like yes or no. For that, we need the chi-square test. So, the chi-square test is designed for one thing, to see if two categorical variables are related. Are they independent, or is there some kind of connection between them? We're talking about things like pass or fail, smoker or non-smoker, or, as we're about to see, where you live, and who you vote for. So here's our final case file for today. We've got some polling data for two candidates. We'll call them A and B. And we also know if the voters live in a rural or an urban area. So the big question is, are these two things related? Does knowing where someone lives give you a clue about their voting preference? And bingo. Now this is what a significant finding looks like. Check it out. Our calculated chi-square value is 10.092, which just blows past the critical value of 3.841. We have more than enough evidence. We can confidently tell the skeptic to take a hike and declare that yes, there is a statistically significant relationship between where a person lives and their voting preference. So we've seen our tools cracked 4 different cases. Now let's just zoom out for a second and look at the simple 5-step process every data detective follows to make that final call, no matter what tool they're using. It's always the same logic. Step 1, you set up the skeptic's view versus your detective's hunch. Step 2, you pick the right tool for the job. Step 3, you crunch the numbers and get your evidence score. Step 4, you compare that score to the critical line in the sand. And finally, step 5, you make the call. Do you have enough evidence to prove the skeptic wrong or not? And this right here, this is the golden rule that ties it all together. This is the moment of truth. If the evidence you calculated from your data is bigger than that critical threshold, you've cracked the case. You've found something real. So we've just added 2 really powerful tools to your detective kit. You now have the basic framework to test your hunches and to separate a real pattern from just random noise. The only question left is, what mysteries out there are you going to investigate?